Thursday from 4 to 5. That is the Be Local Buzz with Devin on Tan Talk 1340 AM and 106 FM every Thursday from 4 to 5. Looking forward to speaking with you.
This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
It's time for the Kelly Show. Kelly is an award-winning photographer and the owner of the website iloveclearwater.com. Doug is the author of 4 published books and a contributing editor for Florida Sportsman magazine. And now, here they are.
Yes, indeed, we're here. And like many of our sport fans around the world, we watched the Super Bowl last night.
Oh, did that happen?
Yeah, it did happen, Kel. I'm Doug Kelly with my better half, Kelly, and Big Ed Davis in the control room. And we have our first guest here. I usually don't introduce him until after our first
break.
Ad break. But then again, I'd like his input too, because we watched the game together last night at his lovely home. And I, like probably 99% of everybody else, figured with Patrick Mahomes and the fact they've won 2 straight Super Bowls and blah, 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 they had to be the favorite, and they were. But I'll bet you the bookies are screaming. Man, I tell you what, they are screaming in Vegas. Ed, you saw the game. It was a blowout.
Yeah, Did you? You still hung around because you thought maybe the Chiefs would come back.
Exactly. That's what I thought it was. What was it, 24-0 at halftime? Something
it got up as high as, 34-0, I think.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And, yeah, you're waiting for them to explode. And they did complete a bomb finally and get on the board a little bit. But that was no contest, man. I tell you what, the Chiefs got to hand it to them. They crushed them. And we're here also with Dr. Ken Neifeld, my friend and physician, rolled into one. And you saw the game. What was your perspective on it?
I was surprised.
All right, that's enough. That's enough.
That's enough.
No, go ahead.
No, Philadelphia was, everyone thinks, was so well prepared, and in both the offense and defense department. I think, all of us thought that both teams were capable of scoring in the 30s, and really only one did. And it just was fairly improbable that a team could hold Patrick Mahomes to a low-scoring game.
Yeah. The formula was right there back in the 51 Super Bowl when the Buccaneers played the Chiefs, and the whole thing was defense, putting pressure on them, getting them to run out of the pocket, getting the sacks. I think they sacked them, 5 or 6 times last night?
Oh, they put a lot of pressure on them, and they sacked them a lot.
What do you think, Ed? Do you think that was the key? Do you think the pressure on Mahomes?
I think they studied the game that the Bucs played against them.
Yep.
And figured that's the way to go.
Has to be. I mean, he'll slay you if you leave him back there in hardly even no time. But he's got that quick release, and he's really, really accurate. So anyway, Kelly.
What about the commercials?
Well, yeah.
Everybody,
commercials.
likes the commercials. It's super tough. Did you have a favorite?
No.
You didn't have a favorite? Not the aliens with the Doritos or anything like that? Were you even paying attention during commercials?
I was paying attention.
Okay.
Absolutely. I had a cupcake or two.
That's the only thing I can contribute to the Super Bowl talk.
Martha Stewart looked good. I didn't know. She looked 30 years younger.
Yeah.
I think that was...
I think she probably went under the knife a little bit, right?
Maybe.
Rejuvenation. But she's always been an attractive woman.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
By the way, if you're not watching live on Facebook or YouTube, you can't see that my nose is practically level with the table here. I don't know what it is about this chair, but it's really low.
Well, either that or you look kind of like an 8-year-old.
During the break, there's a lever on the side.
Yeah, but
stand up and hit it.
I tried.
That's too complicated for us, Ed. What do you think we are, technicians
Who
or
sits
something?
this low? I don't understand. Who is sitting here?
Sometimes a kid will be in here.
Yeah. Or a short person, whatever.
Oh,
That's something else.
wait a minute.
Yeah, not you. Well, listen, we have a really cool show tonight. Stick with us because it's Dr. Neifeld has a library of encounters and interactions with patients, and some of them are absolutely unbelievable.
He wrote a book about
And
it.
he's writing a book about it, and it's going to be out pretty soon. He actually has another book we'll talk about too. So he's become not only a doctor, he's starting to become an author.
Mm-hmm.
So that's awesome. So anyhow, we're going to be here until 6 o'clock. Hang out there with us, and we'll be back soon, right after a few messages from our sponsors.
This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
In 1955, the law firm now known as Perenick, Caulfield, Averill, and Noyes made a decision. Instead of taking whatever cases came through their doors, they decided to focus specifically on personal injury. 64 years later, the law firm is one of Clearwater's longest-running personal injury firms. Available 24 hours a day with offices in Clearwater and throughout Tampa Bay, they're ready to put decades of experience to work for you if you or a loved one has been injured in a car accident or injured due to someone's negligence or recklessness. If you feel overwhelmed, uncertain, or unsure about your next steps after being involved in an accident or after a loved one sustained serious injuries due to someone else's negligence, call Perenick, Caulfield, Averill, and Noyes at 727-796-8282 or online at usalaw.com. That's 727-796-8282 or online at usalaw.com. Non-attorney spokesman.
Shop the largest selection of Guy Harvey apparel, artwork, and gift items at GuyHarvey.com. From the world-renowned marine wildlife artist, the Guy Harvey online shop features the latest in performance apparel, classic Guy Harvey t-shirts, decor for every room in your home, exquisite ocean-inspired jewelry, and unique gift items, including custom merchandise not available anyplace else. Browse an extensive catalog of original Guy Harvey works of art and a full range of beautiful reproductions. As with all Guy Harvey merchandise, a percentage of sales benefits the ocean conservation, research, and education work of the Guy Harvey Ocean Foundation. The Guy Harvey Ocean Foundation will help ensure that future generations can enjoy and benefit from a well-balanced ocean ecosystem. Bring the undersea world into your everyday life at GuyHarvey.com.
Just about everyone is fascinated by the mafia. Books and movies like The Godfather, Goodfellas, Casino, and many others became bestsellers and box office hits. Did you know that a century ago, mobsters like Al Capone discovered Florida's tropical climate and sparse law enforcement? Mafia bosses from around the nation began setting up illegal operations in Florida. Now, for the first time, a new book titled Sunshine State Mafia, A History of Florida's Mobsters, Hitmen, and Wise Guys provides vivid stories and never-before-seen images of dangerous criminals who settled in Florida full or part-time. Written by renowned author Doug Kelly, Sunshine State Mafia exposes the hidden history of the mob throughout the state and includes Doug's own brushes with crime figures. Sunshine State Mafia is available at all major book retailers, or obtain a signed copy by calling 727-724-4949 or email sunshinestatemafia@gmail.com. Discover Clearwater like never before with iloveclearwater.com. Whether you're a resident or a visitor, our website is your go-to source for all things Clearwater. Find the best hotels, restaurants, parks, shopping, and events all in one place. Dive into our engaging photos and videos. Explore over 500 informative articles. Visit iloveclearwater.com today and experience the best of Clearwater. iloveclearwater.com, your ultimate guide to Clearwater for fun, sun, and smiles.
This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
Thanks for listening to the Kelly Kelly Show. I'm Kelly Kelly. I'm here with my better half, Doug Kelly. And we are talking today with Dr. Ken Neifeld. He's a geriatric physician out of Labrador Primary Care. That's the Crosswinds office, and that's in St. Pete. And we're going to be talking about a lot of things, like how to stay healthy while you're getting older, And what else are we going to be talking about?
We're going to be talking about the football game last night. No, I'm kidding.
Again?
I'm only kidding. Don't freak out. Don't freak out. I know.
I got to
you're not
wake
into
myself up every time you start in about that.
it. Ken, again, welcome to the Kelly Show.
Thank you. It's good to be back again.
It's been a while, about a year or so, maybe more. You've had the envious position, you might say, of taking care of people's health, and in going down that road, you encounter a lot of strange bumps in the road, don't you?
Oh, for sure.
I mean, all kinds of different predicaments, all kinds of ailments, and all kinds of different types of recovery or non-recovery. How many of your patients survive, by the way?
Oh my goodness.
They've all survived.
We're still among the breathing. I'm among the breathing. Kelly's among the breathing. Absolutely. Well, tell us a little bit about your journey to become a physician and why you got into it, and we'll go from there.
That's a good one. Well, I attended Temple University as an undergraduate.
The Owls.
And later I was on the faculty of the med school, and I was honored to be accepted at Jefferson Medical College, which is now Sidney Hillman. And anyway, I had a job in high school and in college where I took inventory of pharmacies and in hospital pharmacies, and I decided to go into medicine. I also had worked in a drugstore pharmacy, and the pharmacists in those days were called doc. They provided a lot of medical information, even though they hadn't attended medical school, but they were expected to answer a lot of medical questions. And I admired the pharmacist I worked under, and I think it propelled me. But I also have a story I've talked about. I showed you a little while ago the picture of me with Johnny Carson.
Yeah, Johnny Carson, the great one.
I was with my father, and on the weekends, my brother and I were allowed to stay up late to watch the Johnny Carson show. Some of them were reruns, but sometimes they were. I think they still were live on Friday night. And on one of the Carson shows, he had a surgeon from Texas named Denton Cooley, who was one of the premier heart surgeons. He was one of the earliest doctors to do heart bypasses. And he was really young looking, and he had that Texas drawl and all of that. And he played for the University of Texas basketball team. I have
you're a basketball
fanatic.
Yep.
I found that out later, that a couple of my favorite doctors that I've looked up to played basketball on their high school team or college team. So anyway, Denton Cooley, I didn't know it at the time, but Denton Cooley just seemed like he was relaxed and he was enjoying his life. And he had done some things that were milestones in the medical world. And I looked at him and I said, "Oh, I think this is what I have to do." And I told my father that story, and I actually wrote an essay to the New England Journal of Medicine about the Johnny Carson and Denton Cooley influenced me. And of course, they rejected my essay.
You got to get a few of those first. It can't be too easy.
But then later, I actually met him, in 1993 at the Kennedy Awards in Washington. And, I wanted to tell him that story, but he began to tell me all about his kidney stone attack. And he had been in UCLA Medical Center the week before, had an awful lot of pain, and I could still see him with his expressions about, "Ooh, did that hurt?" And
I passed about a dozen of them. I can relate.
Yeah, you mentioned that. I passed one some years later, and
it's no fun.
It's no fun. It's one of the worst experiences a person can have.
Yep.
So I felt that it was just one of those moments. I was so happy to have a chance to have met him, after all those years. But, his show had something to do with my career decision.
No, that's great. Well, obviously the medical community and the health business and the insurance companies and all of it's intertwined.
Oh, yeah.
And, realize how lucky we are with our health coverage here in our care when you go to foreign countries and you find out that you got to wait 2 weeks or they don't have the medications you need or all that.
Which made you choose geriatrics, though?
Oh, that's an interesting question, but I think a lot of it has to do with it's internal medicine, and older people, are more complicated. They are. Yeah, they have more than one problem very often, and you bond with them because they come in more often than somebody who has episodic care. Comes in, for a cold or cough or respiratory infection or a sprain or, a backache. But you get to know the patients, and I liked it. I was at a lecture one time, and there's a shortage of people in geriatrics, by the way. There has been for a long time. They just can't train enough. And one of the lecturers said, if you had a close relationship with your grandparents, raise your hand. And apparently having had a close relationship with one's grandparents had something to do with choosing geriatrics.
No kidding.
Interesting.
And there were a lot of people in medical school that, didn't really have much of a relationship, or the grandparents were out of state and they didn't know them very, very well. So, I looked up to my grandparents.
Very good. Well, what if, as an example, Ed Davis and I wanted to have a prostate exam? How do we set that up?
It's just part of,
Just part of the whole thing?
Yeah, part of the package.
I got you.
It is. You
Kelly,
don't have
what
to go
about
to a
you, Kelly?
proctologist for that.
Huh?
You can go to you, and you can do this.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Okay.
What is the most inspiring recovery of a turnaround story that you witnessed in a patient?
Well, actually, there's a patient in my book, one of the chapters, a woman named Karen who's still alive. She's the only patient in my book that actually is still living.
Huh.
The others were elderly, had interesting stories, but the story behind this is she was in her late 40s when I met her, and she had severe asthma. On one examination at the office, we've discovered that she had microscopic blood in her urine.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's a sign of cancer, isn't it?
No,
most of the time it's not. It could be a sign of a kidney stone, by the way.
Yeah.
So you don't really jump to any conclusions, and the majority of the time they're not cancerous. But in the evaluation, we ordinarily will do an ultrasound of the kidneys, and we did this ultrasound. Radiologist reports back that she had a lot of cysts in both kidneys, which is a condition called multicystic kidney disease. And he flashed, while he was doing it, he evaluated her pancreas at the same time and her liver. And she had cysts in her liver and pancreas.
Oh, my gosh.
So...
Well, how does that happen, though? Is there something that causes a bunch of cysts?
No one really knows why. So it's an anomaly, It's sort of like having maybe like bad pimples and acne in a sense. The cysts are small, and a lot of them just stay there. So, there is no treatment for it. But what would happen is, because of that, we sent her to a kidney specialist, and he evaluated her, and then he sees the pancreatic cysts, and he says, well, you need a gastroenterologist, a GI specialist. We have to discuss what to do about those. So the long and the short of it was, she went from those doctors in this community to doctors over at they referred her up to Shands, the University of Florida, and the evaluation up there wasn't really very pleasant. The doctors there, the gastroenterologist and a gastric surgeon, does GI surgery, says, well, our suspicion is that these pancreatic cysts are going to become malignant. So we should take your pancreas out, have a total pancreatectomy,
Wow.
which is a radical, serious operation. And one then is on insulin the rest of their lives if they survive it. The mortality is very, very high. So she comes back to me and she's very, very upset. And I wrote about this in the book. And she says, what do you think I should do? And I said, well, you're seeing perfectly well. Your asthma is behaving itself, let's think about this. Let's get another second opinion, but we have to go to a high-powered place. Like you already won the University of Florida. Let's send you up to Jacksonville, where they have a branch of the Cleveland Clinic. And she goes up to Jacksonville, and the doctors that evaluate her were actually trained by the doctors at University of Florida. And then they said, we concur. You should have your pancreas removed.
Wow.
So she comes back, talks to me, and I said, well, I wouldn't be in a hurry. You're not really feeling poorly. Let's keep an eye on this for a little while. She was kind of happy about that. I think she had some vacation plans. It was in the summer. So she goes to a Tampa Bay Rays game, with her husband. Nick, I love you. You're one of my favorites. Sits there, and they're playing the Boston Red Sox. And the man who's sitting next to her says, I happen to be a physician. They have a conversation. Well, what do you do? Well, he says, well, I'm sort of an expert worldwide. I wrote the textbook on pancreatic surgery.
Oh, my God.
I would like to review your case. Could you come up to Boston next week? And
that's serendipity. That is absolute.
1 billion to 1.
Yeah. Incredible.
1 billion to 1.
Yeah.
She goes up 4 or 5 days later, flies up. He takes her in for an appointment in the middle of the week, says, go back to your doctor. You don't need to have this operation.
Oh, my gosh.
She's still alive.
Wow.
I was seeing her husband until very recently. This is
that's a great story.
How long ago?
Over 15 years ago.
Wow.
She's still alive.
Wow.
What does the pancreas do?
Pancreas actually secretes insulin and digestive enzymes. So if you don't have it, you have to be on insulin. You have to be on digestive enzymes. It's. In fact, I so far I've never had a patient who's had that other than a pancreatectomy for cancer.
Wow.
And they usually try not to take the whole pancreas. So it was a miracle. I still think about it.
That's great. That's really great.
You never know who you're going to meet, and you never know who you're going to sit next to.
That's amazing.
At a sporting event, right?
Well, no.
How many patients ever reach the age of 100? Pretty rare, isn't it?
Well, it's getting to be more and more common. In the beginning, I used to get the Good Morning America, not Good Morning America, but one of the TV shows in the morning sent you a letter when you were 100. And I collected the letters. I had told my patients to bring in the letters.
Cool.
So I had a handful of them. And my oldest patient was 106. And she had lived through
106.
106. But yesterday in the New York Times, I read something real interesting. A woman was 104, almost 105, and she passed away not too far from Tampa. There's a town, I think, called Wildwood.
Over by Orlando.
And she was the first to introduce nurse practitioner students. She started it at University of Colorado.
Wow.
In 1965. I didn't know this at all. I had never heard of this lady. Her last name was Ford. And she started the curriculum. And I think I was the second doctor to have a nurse practitioner in 1993.
Wow. Now they're everywhere.
but now there's hundreds of thousands of them now.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they have come a very, very long way, but I didn't even realize that there were states that had nurse practitioners in the 1970s or 80s, because I can tell you, I don't think there was ever one in Philadelphia. I was there for 13 years from graduating my residency, and I never met a nurse practitioner.
Well, what's the benefit of being a nurse practitioner over a doctor? I mean, wouldn't you go to school for a couple of years more and get the big money, or
Well,
or do they get big money?
they get good money.
Yeah.
So, they don't always have to have as demanding a schedule. I had a wonderful experience with the nurse practitioners. Some of them had children, and
A little louder.
loud.
Yep.
Okay. Anyway, I should have had a better sound check.
There you go.
So, some of them had children, like my oldest daughter, who's a nurse, and she wanted to be home at 2:00. I said, yeah, go home.
Oh, okay.
You start a regular day, and
Okay.
there's a little more flexibility. And
I've met some really excellent nurse practitioners over
Did
the
you?
years.
yeah,
I mean, some of them are really, really have a lot of empathy
oh yeah,
and really get into it with you and seem to be friendlier, if anything. I don't know. Not saying nurses aren't friendly or doctors, but nurse practitioners are an important element. It kind of
definitely
relieves the pressure, doesn't it, on the schedule?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that are not that complicated, and even things that are complicated. When they've worked with you for a long time, they know what you're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So I have had really, really strong relationships with them.
I'll be darned.
But she lived to be 104.
That's
That's
fantastic.
amazing.
That's pretty good. But
Pretty damn.
people are
Yeah.
living longer. I think, my feeling is I saw the questions that you were preparing, and the biggest thing, of course, is that smokers, don't
Yeah.
ordinarily live as long and have illnesses that a non-smoker wouldn't necessarily have, and
COPD and emphysema,
right,
Yep.
and
lung cancer, of course.
atherosclerotic heart disease, earlier strokes, all
Wow.
kinds of things, that
Really opens the
and
door.
So there is that has an awful lot to do with it, and I think people are more active. You see commercials and for active people who don't feel that they're debilitated, and they want to do more and more. And
There's an old, not a wives' tale, but sort of a story going around I've heard before, where it's going to get to the point where we are able to cure all diseases and even retard cell growth, where people live not to 65 or 85, but to 250, 350, 400. And that where they discover this, since they don't have the people dying, at the rate that they did before, they become so populated that they have to populate another planet. And that's the reason we have UFOs. They're here to see if we're a fertile place to have.
Are you all right?
No, I'm not saying I buy into it. I just,
Okay.
it's kind of wacky. I agree.
I see.
But have you heard that before?
it still seems a little bit like science fiction.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
For sure. I'm going to skip ahead to a question I want to get in there. If you could give one piece of advice to people in their 50s and 60s to prepare for a healthier old age, what would it be?
Listen to the radio more.
let's see.
You can even make it two pieces of advice if you want.
Two pieces.
Well, maybe
I have a feeling I know what you're going to say.
Is it dietary or
Diet and exercise. Am I right?
Well, I think you have to study the context of a person's life. In the newspaper the other day, I read about a disease I'd never heard of. I can tell you about 99 out of 100, unless they read this article, would never have heard of it.
Okay, what is it?
It's got an unusual name, but it was a genetic disorder where when you ate plant sterols, which was in olive oil and avocado and all the good stuff, it actually led to hardening of the arteries at an early age.
Really?
And I can give you the name.
Yeah, I've always heard that olive oil and avocado oil is
well, paradoxically, there's about 100 people in the world that have this. I think it's autosomal dominant, and I'm not a geneticist anymore, but I admired people in the world of genetics. And ironically, it happened. The person who was a runner and ate all the proper thing had advanced coronary artery disease, and it led to this discovery.
Huh.
And I can tell you, when I read it, I never heard of it. It's not yet in a medical textbook that I know of. So I thought to myself, holy mackerel, there's an exception to everything.
Yeah.
Crazy.
But obviously for my own lifestyle, I don't know that I don't have this condition. I've been screened. I've had heart tests so that I can keep playing full court basketball at this age.
That's good.
And I have enjoyed having a routine. You saw my swimming pool. I try to swim a quarter of a mile, 4 or 5 days a week. I love being in Florida. I love being in Florida to swim. I kind of feel that I can. At my age, I'm past 70. I could still run. I don't think I'm as fast as I never was fast, but I could run to first base if I hit the ball. And I played a lot of baseball. So
you've never heard that adage that the older I get, the faster I was?
Not me. I was always slow, but I couldn't stretch a single into a double all that often. But
well, that's why I couldn't get into football. I was a golfer in high school. And I tried out for the JV junior varsity football team because I love football. And after a practice session, the coach took me and put his arm around my shoulder and says, "Doug, you're small but slow." So that kind of, I think he was trying to encourage me to stick with golf.
Yeah, well, that's a good decision. I mean, golf, by the way, one of the inspirational parts of playing golf was the people that taught me golf. When I first learned, I was in a rotation and during my medical residency. I think the average age was 90.
Oh my! Oh my!
I was my golf instructors are all about 90 years old. You lifted your head. You're not standing right.
Swing through the ball.
They were all elderly golfers. I was hooked up with them when I ran over to the golf course, and they were retired and they were quite old. And I said, I want to play golf at least until I'm 90. And what I see in contrast to with a lot of patients, they can become very arthritic early, just like my wife is that way, even at 50. And the knee replacement's the most common, popular operation in the United States. And you see it in people who don't jog and don't stress their knees and didn't play football, and they just have arthritic knees. There's got to be I'm positive genetic basis of it because we had a famous geneticist in my med school named Laird Jackson. And Laird Jackson was always in the news doing certain things. He tried to dig up Abraham Lincoln's bones to get DNA to prove that he had Marfan syndrome. This is a true story.
What syndrome?
It's called Marfan syndrome. Long fingers and poor eyesight and a propensity to have early serious heart problems.
They didn't allow him to dig up Abe Lincoln.
No, they did.
They did.
I think he was allowed to get to some kind of tissue
sample. Did he have that disease?
I think he was able to get some kind of tissue sample. It might have been from, I don't know how I don't remember the details. But anyway, Lear Jackson actually published an article about a group of people it was a Midwestern state, I thought it was Nebraska, where everyone seemed very arthritic in their 30s.
Really?
Yeah, like if you looked at the family tree, I mean, they had joints that looked like they were 80 and 90.
Wow.
And
the water? What was it?
I don't know, but when you have the genome, the DNA sequences and all of that they study with the human genome, I think there are people who have a propensity to be arthritic earlier than others. That's been my opinion for a very long period of time. I had a patient of mine, I still remember, named Abraham. He was 90s to 95 years old. He came in to the office wearing a jacket and tie. And I said, Abe, I've taken care of you over 10 years. You've never complained about any arthritis, any part of your body. He says, I don't have any arthritis. And then I'm reading this article about the 30-year-olds that need knee replacements. And I'm like, hey, it's sort of like, is the sun shining? It's got to have some genetics.
It has to, but I think it's environmental too, what you eat and how you move. And
maybe, I don't know. But
my grandmother had arthritis really badly.
I was struck by it, but good old Dade said he didn't have arthritis in his family, and he didn't expect to have aches and pains.
There's that old thing about nature or nurture. And genetics, they used to think that it was pretty much your environment and your behavioral characteristics came out based on that. And then they started doing studies of twins who were separated at birth, females separated at birth, and they had the same wives' names, the same dog names. They had the same car. It was absolutely shocking to see the similarities in people who had been separated, had no contact.
That's true.
And yet had all of these things in common because of their genetics.
You know about the blue zones, where there's areas of the world and where people live longer.
Yes.
And the Seventh-day Adventists in Loma Linda, California, tend to be long-lived. And
I thought they attributed some of that to like walking hills and what you ate, like the Mediterranean area.
Well, a combination. I mean,
people in China.
The Okinawa, Japan is one of them.
Yeah.
And there's an area in Sardinia, and then there's an area in Ecuador where I used to do medical mission trips. And, it's a combination. They supposedly eat a lot of beans, and they don't eat a whole lot of meat. They don't eat a whole lot of dairy.
Now, see, I didn't know that.
And
well, we'll stop at beans.
I thought I told you this.
Dairy.
I thought I told you this already. But
you might have. It's my old age memory.
But they are active, and they there's a documentary about it on Netflix.
Right. I watched it.
There's a 100-year-old person.
I'll look up the name of that.
Incredible.
He's riding a horse. He gets on the horse and he gets off the horse.
Amazing. Well, listen, we're going to take a break. We're going to be back with more with Dr. Ken Neifeld and some interesting case studies that you might call it that are going to be in a book he's writing. We're going to talk more about that, and we'll be back right after this.
This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
In 1955, the law firm now known as Perenick, Caulfield, Averill, and Noyes made a decision. Instead of taking whatever cases came through their doors, they decided to focus specifically on personal injury. 64 years later, the law firm is one of Clearwater's longest-running personal injury firms. Available 24 hours a day with offices in Clearwater and throughout Tampa Bay, they're ready to put decades of experience to work for you if you or a loved one has been injured in a car accident or injured due to someone's negligence or recklessness. If you feel overwhelmed, uncertain, or unsure about your next steps after being involved in an accident or after a loved one sustained serious injuries due to someone else's negligence, Call Perinick, Caulfield, Averill, and Noyes at 727-796-8282 or online at usalaw.com. That's 727-796-8282 or online at usalaw.com. Non-attorney spokesman. Just about everyone is fascinated by the mafia. Books and movies like The Godfather, Goodfellas, Casino, and many others became bestsellers and box office hits. Did you know that a century ago, mobsters like Al Capone discovered Florida's tropical climate and sparse law enforcement? Mafia bosses from around the nation began setting up illegal operations in Florida. Now, for the first time, a new book titled Sunshine State Mafia, A History of Florida's Mobsters, Hitmen, and Wise Guys provides vivid stories and never-before-seen images of dangerous criminals who settled in Florida full or part-time. Written by renowned author Doug Kelly, Sunshine State Mafia exposes the hidden history of the mob throughout the state and includes Doug's own brushes with crime figures. Sunshine State Mafia is available at all major book retailers, or obtain a signed copy by calling 727-724-4949 or email sunshinestatemafia@gmail.com.
This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
Thanks for listening to the Kelly Kelly Show. I'm Kelly Kelly, here with Doug Kelly and Dr. Ken Neifeld from Labrador Primary Care in St. Pete. And we're discussing old age and how to live older.
How to live a healthy life, absolutely.
How to live a healthy life.
You have a book coming out that you're working on, and it's a fantastic. I've seen some of the chapters are really engrossing and interesting and really remarkable. Can you give us a sample, for instance, of one of your more interesting patients?
Well, I wrote about 12 different patients.
Right.
I'm a musician. And so two of the patients that I wrote about, I got to know very, very well because of their musical careers. And one was Marion Williams, who was a gospel singer that won the Kennedy Awards. And, that propelled me into some places to meet these celebrities that we've talked about before. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it had to do with Marion Williams. Marion Williams was Aretha Franklin's godmother.
Cool.
And Cissy Houston, who just died last year, and who was in her early 90s, was Whitney Houston's mother. Mm. So she, in the gospel community, knew, the stars, including Dionne Warwick. So I wrote a good deal about Marion and her health and so on. And I wrote also about Valerie Carter, who was a local singer who his parents were patients of mine. Mm. And Valerie was a backup singer for James Taylor on tours for
big names.
Yeah. And I met James Taylor through Valerie. But Valerie was on over 100 hit songs. She sang backup for David Bowie, for Diana Ross, Rod Stewart.
Wow.
If you Google her, what they call discography, she was on. She was written in the song Valerie by Steve Winwood is about her. The song That Girl Can Sing that Jackson Browne wrote was about Valerie.
Wow.
She dated both of them. So I wrote a lot about both of them because I got to know them and know their health issues as well. They both had interesting health conditions, very different. But that stands out. I had a patient, the first chapter, I had a patient who was a magician. And he puts down that what's his occupation? I'm a mentalist. And that took me back.
Yeah.
But then he read my mind a few times.
Like a Kreskin type. Huh?
Yeah. So I didn't know that anybody could do this and make a living out of it.
Wow.
But and I have his book right here, The Magic of Clyban. So then I told you one of the patients that I had started the whole idea of recreational scuba diving. And he was friends with Jacques Cousteau, and he had to work with Mel Fisher, and he found gold off the Virgin Islands. And Queen Elizabeth gave him all kinds of awards. It helped actually tourism in the Virgin Islands, and the resort that he built with the money. And I don't know how much money he ended up really having, but all kinds of celebrities visited his resort. So I thought it was amazing to hear what he was up to when I was taking care of him. And he was swimming into his 90s.
Wow.
He showed me the certificate. I have a copy of it somewhere, of the Guinness Book of World Records. So he was the oldest scuba diver known.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's something.
So, but I wanted to mention that some of the older patients that I wrote about, and one of them did something that was really extraordinary to me. Her first name was Nellie, and Nellie. Do you need a commercial break?
No, go ahead.
Nellie had a suspicious X-ray in her 80s that looked like lung cancer. And she says to me, my husband passed away a few years ago. I don't want to have an operation. I don't want anything to happen. I'm content. I found out her husband was actually a cantor from the very famous cantors in Germany. He was actually an opera singer as well. And I thought he died in a concentration camp, but I didn't. He had worked and sang in New York City, and she brought me a record of his at one time. Well, she lived with this shadow in her lung for many, many years. And she just said, I'm just going to keep an eye on it. And every year or two, just let's watch it. And she lived a long time and died in her sleep.
That's how I want to go.
Me too.
6 months later, I got invited to a party that she was giving.
What?
6 months later, I get an invitation. Nellie's inviting you to a luncheon, a party that she's taken care of. She paid in advance for
Everybody
all of
to
her
get together.
friends to get together
Wow.
in a banquet room
Wow.
at a country club. And everybody walks in and knew Nellie.
Wow.
That's pretty interesting.
And I thought, what a cool lady this was.
Yeah, right.
I mean, if you're not around, but your friends, let's say, good old Nellie,
That's cool.
good old Doug, he would have liked this baseball game or whatever. And then they got together in a room. I didn't know it.
Wow.
There was this whole, must have been 75 to 100 people in this room.
That's
celebrating her life
That's awesome.
afterwards.
That's great. That is really great.
So
Well, let me ask you this. Falling is a malady of a lot of older people. What do you do to limit or eliminate falls if you're an older person who has equilibrium problems?
Well, you ever been to Philadelphia on the cobblestone streets?
Yeah, boy, those.
Old Northeast. You know what? It was considered fashionable to have a cane. Even even presidents and
Unreal.
Anybody who was celebrated.
But you got to have the top hat to go with it.
You had to have a cane. Of course, the balance exercises have been around. Physical therapy.
I didn't know about balance exercises.
Yeah, they similar to like trying to walk tandem, like a drunk test. So where you put one foot in front of the other on a straight line. There's another one where you have a board and there's just like a rolling pin in the middle of the board, and you rock back and forth on that.
Okay.
Um,
Wait. So you're talking about a DUI test and an acrobat test.
Yeah, for balance. I mean, they were kind of things that therapists have recommended for, improving one's balance. And probably the activity that's altogether the best is actually dancing. And supposedly, even if you don't have a partner, if you watch a dance video and you try to do the steps,
Really?
assuming you're not going to fall and you can hold on, then it's good for your balance.
Okay.
So it's
Okay. I just want to mention the Live to 100 Secrets of the Blue Zones that you mentioned earlier on Netflix, is the places in the world where you live to over 100 and what they do to get there. I don't know that I want to live to over 100 because of all the ailments you have to put up with. I don't know.
Well, I guess it depends on each
Aches and
person.
pains.
I want to live to be 100
You do.
for sure. 120. That's what 120 is. Moses in the Bible.
Was it? Well, that's
Yeah.
not Methuselah, though.
No, not Methuselah. And Joseph was 110.
I didn't know that.
I have these targets.
I mean, but what if you have incontinence or something like that? There's some. Oh yeah, we're winding down here.
We're gonna take a real quick break and take a couple of our sponsor ads here, and then we're gonna come right back, wrap things up with Dr. Ken Neifeld, and talk about something offbeat a little bit, marijuana.
This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
In 1955, the law firm now known as Pernick, Caulfield, Averill, and Noyes made a decision. Instead of taking whatever cases came through their doors, they decided to focus specifically on personal injury. 64 years later, the law firm is one of Clearwater's longest-running personal injury firms. Available 24 hours a day with offices in Clearwater and throughout Tampa Bay, they're ready to put decades of experience to work for you if you or a loved one has been injured in a car accident or injured due to someone's negligence or recklessness. If you feel overwhelmed, uncertain, or unsure about your next steps after being involved in an accident or after a loved one sustained serious injuries due to someone else's negligence, call Pernick, Caulfield, Averill, and Noyes at 727-796-8282 or online at usalaw.com. That's 727-796-8282 or online at usalaw.com. Non-attorney spokesman. Discover Clearwater like never before with iloveclearwater.com. Whether you're a resident or a visitor, our website is your go-to source for all things Clearwater. Find the best hotels, restaurants, parks, shopping, and events all in one place. Dive into our engaging photos and videos. Explore over 500 informative articles. Visit iloveclearwater.com today and experience the best of Clearwater. iloveclearwater.com, your ultimate guide to Clearwater for fun, sun, and smiles.
This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
Hey, well, this is Doug Kelly with Kelly and Big Ed Davis. And what is your contact info for Labrador for people who might want to get some expert medical help?
www.dr, that is, not spelled out, drlabrador.com.
And Labrador, like Labrador.
Like a dog.
Yep.
Yep. Gotcha.
drlabrador.com.
Well, listen, thank you for listening for us today for the Kelly Show. We'll be back next week at the same time, same station. And always remember, don't go looking for happiness. Take it with you.
Thanks for listening to the award-winning Kelly Show on the Tan Talk Radio Network.